Hello, everyone. Welcome to another podcast with HealthTech with Purpose. And today we have a special guest coming from all the way from Switzerland. We have David Evendon-Challis, who is the executive board member and chief scientific officer, head of R&D Consumer Health Bayer. Hello, David. How are you?
Hi there. Thank you for having me. All good here. Thank you.
Great. Glad to be connected with you, David, because I know some of the work that you've been doing has a very high impact in the world that we live in, which we are going to talk more about during this podcast. But before we get to the work today, would like to know a bit of more of on your background and things that you've done that led to the role that you are in today. Would you like to describe some of your work history and your background?
Sure. Where to begin? So I studied biology in the UK a long time ago now, and decided that I didn't want to go into research. So I moved into industry, and I joined a company, Kimberly-Clark, and that was the start of my kind of 20 odd years within health and hygiene. I've always had a bit of a non-linear route through my career, and started off in regulatory. I was an auditor for a little while, moved into public affairs and sustainability, and that was a fantastic experience because for me, working in this kind of industry, to be able, you often only see kind of one piece of it, and for me to be able to see everything from the policy side of things through to manufacturing the products and what's going on in the factories and things like that was that was a super experience for me. I spent a couple of years in agency side doing similar kinds of things, but from the other side, working with different companies on things like sustainability, health and innovation. And then I moved to Reckitt Benckiser and spent about 8 years there. Started off responsible for sustainability and then picked up innovation along the way. So it was kind of a nice mixture between kind of setting that company strategy on sustainability and how to be a company that's responsible and then grows in a responsible way, and integrate sustainability into innovation, and then actually bringing that to the products themselves. And some of my passions are around kind of building brands into new areas and then creating new brands with it as well. So another fantastic experience. And then about 4 years ago, I moved to sunny Basel in Switzerland and joined Bayer, and that's my current role, looking after R&D within Bayer Consumer Health.
Sorry. So great. Thank you so much for a comprehensive introduction, David, to set things up. So let's go more deeper into the work that you do at Bayer. So what is your day-to-day work like? What are the things that excite you the most? What are the things you're currently working on?
So it's an exciting time to work in consumer health, I think. There's such a big opportunity. So I work across all of our different brands and our different geographies. Innovation has a role to play in all of them. So it's a pretty diverse role. And when you think about it, self-care has never been more important with the burden on health systems. There was actually just a report came out this week from the European Self-Care Association, which I haven't finished reading yet. But one of the key findings there was by expanding self-care, that can save more than 54 billion euros to the European healthcare system per year. And there's similar kinds of stats that you see. So I'm really passionate about self-care and how we can essentially allow people to take better control of their health, and that cuts across all of the different self-care areas we work in, from allergy, cough, cold, pain, heart health, supplements, dermatology, digestive health. So working across all of those different areas, what can we do to not just grow our brands and grow our business, but actually provide better products and services to people, and move into new areas, because it's It's an exciting area to work in. It's not always easy to work in. There's quite a fragmented regulatory environment around the world, so it's always a challenge to do these kinds of things at scale, but there's such a need in all of these different areas, and we're working across each of those kind of benefit areas or categories, however you want to call it, to bring new innovations to the market.
Great. So I'd like to dig deeper on this aspect, in fact, of your work, which is very exciting. The precision medicine, what I would call it, like a very customized solution for every person, rather than everybody taking the same medicine. So can we go deeper a bit, maybe a one level deeper, like what it is, how it works, what is the roadmap, what are the challenges?
Yeah. Well, I mean, ultimately, this is all another part of how you give people better control over their health. And Precision Health for me is about the role of digital in enabling that. Better data means better healthcare. And we know that digital has changed how all of us live day to day. It's changed everything within our lives, but I don't think it's been a bit slower within healthcare, especially within self-care. Some of us have a bunch of wearables, whether they're incorporated into other things. There's online assessments and tests and stuff like that. But, I think it's just too complicated. Sometimes it's too expensive. And for me, one of the big problems that you face is it's not really actionable. So what we're trying to do is to take a different approach, which is less kind of product centric and much more human centric. Just thinking about the way that people actually want to manage their health, because it starts with, I have a problem, there's a prompt to action. And then you start to find out information about it. You might engage with some experts. You might do your online research with Dr. Google. And then you decide what you actually want to do about it. And then you take some action. So for us, this is about kind of piecing together kind of that whole journey and saying what's the right role, not just a product, a bottle of pills that kind of might arrive at the end of that process. So that's the kind of the general kind of the setup here. And as part of that, what we're doing is rethinking that whole development process. So it is truly that kind of end-to-end experience rather than just kind of one piece of it, which requires a lot of partnerships to do that, because we're obviously kind of not experts in all of that. And it involves bringing in lots of different new technologies as well into this area, some of which aren't new to the world, but they're new to healthcare, or they might be new to self-care as well. Things like digital therapeutics that all have a role within this. I think this is, it's very cool, because it's now moving from that one piece of the puzzle to taking a step back and saying, actually, there's bigger problems here, and we've got a role to play. And maybe we have a role beyond what we thought it was in the past. And with that, you can apply that to almost any area of health. We're working on a number of different areas within that. I think when it comes to digital health, it's there's so many different ways you could approach it, but for me, we need to start to focus on the areas where there is that big unmet need. So whether that is the products don't really work so good, so you need something else, and a physical product on its own isn't going to be enough, or maybe there isn't great education and people aren't really sure what they should be doing at what point to give them the best care. And these things go on, but the unmet need part of this is incredibly important, because otherwise you're providing a solution to a problem that doesn't really exist. And I think we still have a huge number of areas. Take IBS, for example, and gut health. This is something that my dad suffered with for years, to the point that, close to his death, he didn't really leave the house because he was so worried about what was going to happen and what was going to trigger him. He didn't really know what was going on with that. And just think of what you could do by actually giving people that knowledge, that power, that control over their health, and actually to regain a bit of their independence in that situation and start to live a bit more confidently. Those are the kinds of areas that I think are absolutely ripe for disruption, because people just don't know what to do. The other side of things, which is also really interesting, is where things might be taboo. So we have a brand called Caniston. It works in intimate health, and that's a huge taboo topic. And so with that kind of brand, you can bring in education, you can be busting myths, you can be trying to break some of the taboos around a topic. So there's loads of different angles in, but ultimately it's got to start with what's a big unmet need.
Yeah, I think that definitely sounds so exciting, and seems like, in fact, a perennial solution for the unmet woes that people have. But one thing that comes to mind, that I'd like to discuss with you today would be, what are the challenges in applying it? Because, one, I think it really shakes up the old structure, because I think we have big institutions that are built on the foundation, a habit that is always you are mass producing things. Basically, you are producing things, or all the R&D or all the things that are done are possibly based on like mass production of any kind of vaccine or any kind of cure, for example. So that's one thing that comes to my mind. So I would like to know, is that a problem, and what are the other problems or challenges that you see, and being able to reach to the future that we are imagining?
So that's a big question. There's a ton of problems. You could talk about the healthcare system, the regulatory environment, and things like that. You can talk about the problems that we face in actually getting people to understand that prevention is really important, and not just waiting for an issue, because that is tough. Behavior change is tough for all of us. I think we all know what we probably should be doing. We're probably not all doing that at the same time. But I think when it comes to kind of a business like ours working in this kind of area, some of the problems are we don't have the capabilities or the skill sets to actually do this, right? So what do you do? If you're working, are we going to spend 10 years developing our own new digital therapeutics and things like that? No. So the answer to that is partnerships and piecing together the different experts that are in this. I don't like the word ecosystem, but I'll use it as in this instance, that as part of that ecosystem, and stitching those together. That comes with its own problems, because partnerships are tough, right? Particularly partnerships between large companies and startups and things like that. So actually you might have a vision for what the future might look like, but actually identifying the different partners or the different kind of technologies, the different skill sets is one thing. Being able to bring those together and actually create something that makes sense, where there's a good cultural fit between the organizations, but there's also, essentially a deal to be made as well as part of this, where you can actually make money from it. That is tough, because a lot of the times when it comes to digital health, not everything is paid for, lots of things are free. And so you need to work that kind of thing in. And for a company that is used to selling, bottles of medicine, that is a big challenge. So it's a business model challenge, a partnership challenge, a consumer challenge, a regulatory challenge as well. There are lots of firsts in this kind of area. But you could sit there and think this is impossible, or you could start to take some steps, find some like-minded companies, and that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, in fact, one of the things that I noticed is that you have been working diligently on partnerships and bringing partners into the ecosystem. Tell us more about some of the exciting partnerships that you have been part of, and how those journeys have been. And especially if there is someone who want to, let's say, be part of the ecosystem, I'd like you to also elaborate on how they can participate, if there's a recipe.
Sure. So we partner across the board. I think we know that experimentation is better than perfection in this area, and I think in most areas, to be honest. So lots of different types of partnerships. We're working with a company called Humor, amazing company doing some awesome things, and we're working with them on cardiovascular health and actually providing better information to people, starting off in the US and soon to be broader, hopefully, to people to understand what is your heart health risk. You don't need to go to a doctor's office and have a bunch of tests to get a decent amount of information about your risk level when it comes to your heart health. That might then prompt some action. So actually working with that company, they have a great tool. We have brands with Bayer Aspirin. We have been working in cardiovascular health for a long time as a company. You put those two things together, and the power of that brand and the awareness with a great technology means that you can actually start to do some experiments with how is this going to work? What kind of action does this actually prompt? And we know that from the work that we've done there, and that one was in the US with Humor, the people that managed to go through this process have a better understanding of their cardiovascular risk, and are actually kind of committing to take action, which often cases involves a visit to your healthcare practitioner. And the other thing that I find that's interesting about, and the role of partnerships, is brands know consumers, right? And they have an awareness around it. And so one of the things that we bring is there might be a great technology, but it might be a little bit clunky. And actually, if you can bring that brand, that understanding of the consumer, how people like to receive information, what triggers them to action, those two things can come together quite nicely, and actually get better action and better results than something that wasn't necessarily designed with that user experience in mind. So that's one of them. That's a fantastic experiment that's been running for a little while now. We'll also do it with whether that is self-care chatbots, telehealth partnerships. We've been partnering with a couple of organizations on digital therapeutics as well, which is a different end to the digital health spectrum. As well as things like online assessments. We have a partnership with Ada Health on that one as well. So for me, it's about lots of different types of partnerships. So you can actually start doing some things like with Ada, for example, fairly shortly after we made an investment in the company and said we were going to work together. We then put out a bunch of pilots with our brands in, I think it was 3 different markets, 4 different brands, embedding that digital kind of tool within our brand ecosystem to see actually how does that work, what should happen. So it's that kind of a series of these kind of experiments. And yeah, lots more to come on that one. I think when it comes to partnering with a company like Bayer, the most important thing for me is that there's a good fit between different organizations. You've got to be able to work together. You need to be able to make a human connection. I know we always start about technologies and things like that, but actually there needs to be a way that you can kind of start to talk to each other and figure out, like, what are you all about? What are you looking for? And vice versa, rather than like a pitching or vendor type arrangement, I think is one thing. And advice for people that are thinking to work with Bayer or companies similar to ours would be just be really, really clear on what you're offering, but also what you want and who you are. I think those are the things that we sometimes miss with partnerships. Do your research on the organization. Where are they strong? Where are they weak? Where do they have great brands? There's no point kind of pitching to work with Bayer or to approach us if it's for a tiny brand that is just in one market that doesn't have any scale potential, for example. Have a look at where they're strong, where they're growing, and actually start to find those kinds of connections. And then it's just a conversation that starts things off. I think in my years of working in partnerships, there's a lot of wasted time with back and forth, and things get very formal too quickly. And then oftentimes they then just fizzle out. So I think it's going in fairly as direct as you can be with who you are, what you're looking for, what your idea might be. Obviously not giving away all of your kind of company secrets and stuff like that, but being as open as possible, I think, is the best place to start. And so definitely with our partnerships program, we've taken a much more of a human-centric approach to that rather than like an automated system kind of thing, because I've been part of those in the past and they are pretty clunky, a bit impersonal, and they can take forever. I mean, we're a large company. Sometimes we can be a bit slow as much as we would love to move fast. But I think when you've got that human connection, it can move a lot faster and be a lot smoother with it.
Makes sense. Great. And I think you said it right. One, human connection, and second, the objective of the partnership, I believe, has to be very clear, because if that's clear, everybody Of course, easier said than done, but that's always about, partnerships, that, parties should know why they're getting into it and what they're expecting out of it. Otherwise, it becomes, like, confusing. Great.
Definitely.
Yeah. So another thing that stood out, David, from your background and the work that you have done was the sustainability focus, and I was very excited because I personally have always been invested into sustainability as much as possible in my work too. So share more about the sustainability focus that you have, especially again around developing the consumer-centric products today and your day-to-day work.
Well, I think I also am passionate about sustainability, and I've spent a bunch of my career working like only on sustainability. And what I like about
You have
what we
been
do,
a change maker.
we're all trying our best, and so it's a team sport. I think is the first thing. That's the thing I've learned. It can't just be done with a a remote corporate function. It has to be truly kind of embedded into the business. Is the best bit.
Yeah.
And it's about where you actually get traction, is where you kind of bring together people with a lot of knowledge and expertise, often on the sustainability side, with people that are passionate with it, which can come from anywhere, and also people that are accountable for the change. And so that will involve people within R&D, marketing, your sales teams, and putting those kinds of groups together. And that's very much been our approach. In Bio we have a focus on the environment, and I'm particularly interested in the packaging element of that, moving self-care packaging to be environmentally responsible and sustainable. The industry has probably moved a little bit slower than some others, so there's a lot of work to be done there, and that's super interesting because there's a lot of technical issues that you have to face when you are changing packaging to new materials and all of this kind of stuff within a healthcare environment. It's much harder and slower than it is in some other industries and areas that I've worked in. So that's one. The other one is around access. So we've got a goal to kind of give better healthcare to 100 million people who are in kind of either medically or economically underserved communities. So that gives us a focus to innovate differently, provide different products and services to underserved communities. What does that actually mean in practice? Because that all sounds good and it's very as kind of corporate commitments. There's a bunch of different things. There's things that we can do within our existing portfolio. We have products, but actually, are they in the wrong count size and things like that? Are they not available in the right channels? So there's a bunch of things you can do to actually make what you already have accessible to more people. That's one. Another side is actually innovating for sustainability. So we do things like, rather than it being kind of a separate project, this is incorporated into everything that my team does within R&D, for example. So at each stage within that product development, our product developers, our packaging engineers, they're all trained on sustainability. We have a tool that we use each of those phases through product development to assess, is this product is it as sustainable as it could be? Is it reaching the most people? Is it being as inclusive as it can be? Because things like inclusivity, I think, fall into that larger space as well, so that we can make sure that over time our product portfolio becomes more sustainable. So it's like a mixture between what can you do today to actually make things a bit better? How can you move things through your innovation pipeline and become like a more sustainable portfolio as a company, as well as those kind of making sure you've got those big corporate goals as well that provide that bit of an anchor. So that's kind of our approach. And it means that you can do stuff for today, but you're also planning for, the next 5-10 years as well with your innovation pipeline, because some of these things, as much as we would always love to move really, really fast, it's not always possible to do. We've had a challenge within healthcare about PVC packaging in blisters, for example. That's been a challenge since I started working in this industry, for example. So it takes a long time to crack, and let's see who's first to crack it.
Great. No, I think somebody who has the mission and the motive would be the one who cracks it.
We'll see.
Yeah. Great, David. So my last question for the evening, because this is a Health Tech with Purpose podcast. So I would like to learn more about your purpose of for the things that you do, and how are you driving that purpose?
My purpose. So my purpose is around kind of expanding kind of my own and other people's worlds that makes things better, which sounds super fluffy, and it probably is. But for me, this is, what I love to do, and what I think I'm here to do is to make connections between different ideas, different people, kind of expand the world a little bit so that we can actually make more progress, be that on healthcare, digital, whatever that might be, people development. I apply it to kind of everything that I do. So it's all about kind of making things a little bit bigger, making better connections between things. And that's what I apply into my job and also outside of things, because I think it's, for me, I took a long time to think, like, what is my purpose? What am I here to do? Is my purpose my job? Well, what happens when my job changes? And I think a lot of us go through that kind of thing. And for me, I kind of settled. It was only last year, so it took me a good kind of 20 years of working to figure this out. But actually, the thread through all of this stuff is actually what I'm here to do, is just make things a bit bigger so that you can make better connections and make things better. The thing that you're doing it with could be anything. And then I apply that to, my job today. And that means, so rather than just delivering the commitments that we have and, the products that we've committed to and stuff like that, my job then becomes, thinking about the impact that we want to make with our stakeholders. So making that world a little bit bigger, not just thinking about our customers and our consumers, but also the healthcare pyramid, the healthcare professionals, our investors. So expanding things out. And then in addition to kind of delivering the today, it's then, well, how do we reimagine? How do we do that? How do we serve all of those needs? And so it can apply at that very kind of high level. And then it goes down into the day-to-day as well for me. So whether that is, mobilizing the organization, having that great idea, connecting different like-minded people so you can kind of start to catalyze some of that change, and then coaching people through it. It means that with that kind of purpose, my style needs to be coaching. So asking questions, helping to make some connections so that it's not me and my brain that's doing something, it's the impact that I can have on others. So it's not like everyone that works in healthcare's purpose, so mine is a bit different, but that's kind of guides what I do, and in particular how I do it. And as you can tell, because I could talk for hours about this, it brings me a lot of energy when I think about things in that way. So in a nutshell, it's that.
No, I definitely like the sound of it. All I can say from my own experience is that the purpose has to be that big vision goal, basically, and then, that allows us to do those small things or small wins every day. So it has to be big enough that you are striving towards it over years and doing a lot of accomplishments while on the way of it. So I think I like the purpose that you mentioned. Thank you, David. It's been a real pleasure hosting you. And thank you so much for sharing your insights and sharing your time. Thank you.
All righty. Thank you.